I remember when you were in some of your interactions with people, because a part of you which is fully integrated with the rest of you is the fact that you're a believer in God, a follower of Jesus and so on, and have been for many years. And I remember at one stage you went in one of your visits to Indonesia and you were asked to have a chat, speak to a group of Indonesian dads, and it was going great because they wanted you to speak to them like you were speaking to Australians. But then partway through, everything changed. What happened there?
Well, I sort of accidentally dropped a clanger. So I was in Indonesia on business, in Surabaya actually, and they asked me to talk to a few hundred Muslim dads in this room, and they said, just give us your normal fathering talk, which was sort of jumping between Indonesian and English. I got to the point, they had a break at half-time, just before I got to half-time in this thing, I got to the point where I was talking about unconditional love. I said in Australia we talk about it's important in a competitive environment to love your kids unconditionally. For example, if you've got two kids and one's good at school and the other one struggles, in the process of helping the one that's struggling, it's easy for that child to think you don't love them as much. You would only love them more if they got better at school. And if you do the wrong thing, which is to use the smart kid as bragging rights, parents should never use their kids as bragging rights, but if you do, what do you think the other kid thinks? So I explained that we talk about loving kids unconditionally, regardless of their performance. And I talked about sport. I talked about behaviour. One kid's, school prefect, the other one getting into trouble all the time. I've been down that road. Getting called up to the deputy principal's office. One kid's pretty, one daughter's pretty, the other one isn't. And I said, and regardless of what you believe, if you believe a certain thing and then one of your children decides not to, as happened in my family, like one of my kids, it was like a black cloud descended on the room. It broke for half time. The organiser called me over and said, that was not the right thing to say. In Islam, you cannot suddenly decide you don't want to be a Muslim and you're going to change to be a Hindu or a Christian or something. It doesn't work like that. This is not a social thing. This is actually Islam. It's a social kind of contract, if you like. And this absolutely emphasise, this is no criticism of Islam at all. I do a lot of work in Indonesia. I have dear friends in the biggest Muslim country in the world. It's just a difference. There's a difference in how you see this particular issue, unconditional love. Anyway, so I thought, I don't really want to ostracise these guys, but I don't want to back off from the principle. I think you get a sense of what I'm talking about. If you've got a kid who's smart and one kid who struggles, you'll sense what I mean. Maybe it was you when you were a kid. So I thought, I don't want to back off from this. And after all, they have asked me to say, what do I say in Australia? So I took a different tack and I stood up and I said, look, I understand that what I said about unconditional love might have not sat well with, people. Let me just say that this is not an academic exercise for me. I said one of my children has decided to go his own way and he's decided that he doesn't believe what his mum and his dad believe, and I had to decide, do I love him the same or not? I said, my wife and I decided we're going to love him exactly the same. Exactly the same. Anyway, it seemed to work, and afterwards I said to the organiser, was that okay? He said it was fantastic because you spoke from the heart. And the thing about it is, the notion of unconditional love, of course, comes from Christianity. And again, I'm not trying to be critical of Islam. It's just that there is a difference. There is a difference. When the son of the prodigal son came back, remember the prodigal son had spent half of his dad's money. Imagine if your son went and spent half of your entire estate, wine, women and song, and came back. And he had a deal. Remember, he had a deal in his head. He's going to cut a deal with his dad. He's going to work in the farm, in the slops, for, whatever it is, 10 years, to earn his way back into the family to make up for the money. And I was always taught, make your kids take responsibility for their actions. If it was me, I'd have been standing at the gate, looking like this. And as he made his speech, I'd have said, fair enough, take responsibility, 10 years, I'll cut you down to 9 for good behaviour. But it seemed like a good deal. His father runs out and hugs him. And he starts his speech, the father cuts him off. Won't even let him finish. That's the core of Christianity, unconditional love. We call it grace, but it's unconditional love. And it is the core of our being. And if we can bring it into our fathering, and mums for mothering as well, to love your kids and make sure they know your love does not depend on their performance, that there's nothing they could do, nothing they could do that would separate you, that would destroy your love. Nothing. That is a wonderful thing. And that was that moment in Surabaya when that contrast came up.